Welcome to Yeukai Business Show, UK's premier business show where we feature business thought leaders, high achievers, and industry experts. Today's episode is brought to you by World Outsourcing Solutions Limited, a company that specializes in helping executive business owners with virtual assistant services and business growth systems. Here's your host, Yeukai Kajidori.
Hey guys, welcome back to another very special episode. And today I'm truly honored to have a guest that I respect and has done a lot for entrepreneurs in my time than anyone I know. On the show is Brad Blazar joining me here today. Brad, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here with you today, you guys. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. Now, Brad Blazar is a master when it comes to helping business owners raise capital, and he's the go-to person when it comes to acquiring business or ideas and strategies on acquiring business and using other people's money to generate capital. In fact, Brad has helped other companies raise in excess of $2 billion in their businesses. Brad, once again, thank you so much for being on the show here today.
It's great to be here. I always enjoy visiting with people, learning from others, and adding value where and when I can.
Now, you've done a lot of things, but one thing that really sticks up to me is how you've gone on to help companies raise capital in excess of $2 billion. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got to be doing that.
Sure. Well, when I was in school as a teenager, I went to work in college for a small oil company. And what I was hired to do was get on the telephone well before we had the internet and basically reach out to and call high net worth, accredited, wealthy investors to see if they would have an interest in investing in our oil and gas drilling programs that we were sponsoring. And I got very good at it. I would go in after class and I would get on the phone and I would call all across the United States. I did that for about a year, maybe a little over a year. And then I went to work for a second company doing exactly the same thing. And unfortunately, let's just say the principals and the owners of the second company, their business ethics did not align with mine. What we actually found out is they were committing fraud and they were lying to people. So I naturally resigned, and the investors that I had cultivated organized a class action lawsuit, which of course we prevailed. But what they did is they looked to me and they said, well, Brad, now that you're not working there anymore, what are you going to do next? And, I was a 23-year-old kid. Nobody really knew how old I was because they never met me in person. They only knew me over the phone. And so I said, I really don't know. And they said, well, why don't you do what they were doing, but just do it with honesty and integrity? And so I had a group of investors that basically I had cultivated that when I was 23, literally catapulted me into the role as the CEO and founder of a small oil company.
Wow.
And so I didn't know anything about business. But I was a quick learner. And so over, the first couple of months, I hired a CPA, an accountant. I got a nice, good securities attorney, and I got a geologist and was able to build that company over the course of about 10 years into an organization and a platform where we had about 30 to 35 employees. We were raising millions of dollars every month, drilling for oil in Texas and Oklahoma and Louisiana. And then, unfortunately, in the late 1980s, early 1990s, two things happened that really changed my life. One is oil prices plummeted because OPEC had much more control over the industry.
Right.
And here in the United States, the tax laws changed. And so the tax laws took away most of the incentive for investors. And so I just, over the course of a year, slowly just basically collapsed the company until one day we no longer existed. I never had to file bankruptcy because we didn't have any debt. But what I did is I went back to school. I completed my undergraduate degree because I had actually dropped out to start the business. And so after I graduated, I did something, Yeukai, that most people will never do.
Right.
What I did is I looked at myself in the mirror introvertly and I said, what's the really good skill, or what do do I possess that I'm really, really good at? And what I realized about myself is I was really good at raising capital. I knew how to speak to investors. I knew how to close. And so from that point forward, really what I did is I just pivoted and I went to work in financial services, not as a stockbroker, not as a financial advisor, but as somebody that represents investment issuers, real estate companies that need to raise capital. And what I've done basically over the course of my career is I've helped other people raise capital for different projects or to buy businesses. And much like you said, I've raised, a little over $2 billion with a B. And today, in addition to being a business coach and a coach to entrepreneurs and people that obviously are looking for self-development, I also consult to business owners and entrepreneurs that need to raise money. And I've got people all over the world that have retained my services to basically help them get access to capital so that they can use other people's money and grow and scale their business.
Incredible. One of the things I love about you is you have a podcast that is doing so well where you are literally helping other business owners do just that. Talk to us a bit about that.
Yeah, so we started a podcast a little over a year and a half ago. It was actually launched initially under the name Learn to Soar, which really was, of course, tied to my first book, which is called On the Wings of Eagles, Learn to Soar in Life. And so really when I started my journey as an entrepreneur, teaching, coaching, training, and speaking, what I was really promoting when I got started was the book. Because the book is really, for me, what kind of launched my career. I wrote the book, I self-published it, and, most people that write a book are told by the naysayers or their friends, oh, you'll be lucky if you ever sell more than 100 copies, And so shortly after my book came out, it was actually a good friend of mine that was going to go buy it. And when he Googled the book, instead of the book coming up on Amazon, what actually came up, of all places, was a large blog over there in England where you're located called Boove, Boove. And they put together a list of the top 10 books for young entrepreneurs. Well, lo and behold, my book was the number one book on the list. And so what I did is I took that and I sent basically a copy of my book with a letter to all of the major universities here in the United States that have entrepreneurship programs, introducing myself, showing them that my book was rated number one. And, over the course of the next 60, 90 days, I started to get telephone calls. Hey, Brad, thank you so much for sending your book. We'd love to have you come in and speak to our student body, or we'd love to have you come in via Skype or Zoom and actually speak to the subject that your book talks about. And so slowly but surely, word got out. And then I started getting calls from radio shows and television shows. And I realized that for me, there was a much bigger picture here. And so I simply pursued that with a tremendous amount of intensity. And today, of course, now have a podcast called Beast Nation because we've rebranded under our coaching program, which is called Build Your Beast, just like the sign behind me on the wall.
Yes.
And basically now, our podcast was just rated as the second highest rated podcast by Yahoo Finance, Yahoo News, Business Insider, Digital Journal as the second best rated podcast to help people cope and deal with COVID-19, which is real exciting because the podcast really focuses about overcoming your limiting beliefs, crushing self-doubt, which is really, as you know, so essential and so needed to be successful as an entrepreneur, because as an entrepreneur or as a business person, man, you're going to get punched in the gut.
Every way.
You're going to have days where you're like, what the hell am I doing? Why am I doing this? But, to be successful, you just got to keep marching on. You've got to keep focused on your goal. And you've got to learn basically not to listen to your feelings, because if you listen to your feelings or you buy into the naysayers and the haters, you'll never end up reaching the level of success you're capable of.
Absolutely, absolutely. And now you've got millions and millions of people ready to listen to what you have to say on the Biz Nation, which, we are truly grateful to have you on the show, talk about, raising capital. Now, with that, let's dive straight into how business owners can use the strategies that you're about to share with us to raise capital.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, here's the first thing I'll tell you. I learned this very quickly when I was in my 20s. Most ordinary people don't realize this. Maybe they do. But my God, there is so much money in the world. I mean, trillions of dollars, and when you realize that all you got to do is just get your small little piece of the pie, you can create a tremendous, tremendous amount of wealth for yourself and your family. And so basically what I teach people, or what I explain, is if you can get other people's money, you can use their money. You don't need to have your own money. You can get investors and use other people's money to create a business or to invest in real estate and share some of the profits with them, while you obviously take some of the profits for yourself for being the organizer, and create significant wealth. I'll give you an example. A lot of people, as you and I both know, invest in real estate.
Yes.
And so, maybe they'll buy a little rental house and they fix it up nice, and then they rent it out to somebody, and, they're lucky if they make a couple $100 a month in positive cash flow. Maybe they buy 2 or 3. Well, that's fine. They're using their own capital. And I say to people, why don't you go out and buy a 350-unit apartment building? Create millions for yourself when that piece of real estate, doubles in value over to 5 to 7 years. And they look at me like, I can't buy a $15 million apartment building. And I say, yes, you can, if you use other people's money to do it. And so I show people how to put together basically what we call an offering circular, how to create a PowerPoint presentation, how to create an investment summary sheet that explains the investment opportunity and articulates to prospective investors exactly what it is you're doing. And then I show people how you approach investors, how you can use social media like LinkedIn or like Facebook to create groups, to bring people together into a community that have an interest in real estate or have an interest in acquiring or investing in businesses. And once you start creating the activity, of course, and you start getting people's interest, the most important thing is you have to follow up on that. And once you get a couple of investors and they start seeing some success, or they start feeling good about you, it's then, of course, always going to the next step, which is getting referrals. And what really just amazes me as a consultant, when I look at people's businesses and I say, for any business in the world, it doesn't matter whether you're a doctor, whether you're running an automobile dealership, doesn't matter what you do, there are 5 things that every business needs. And so that's what allows me as a business coach to be universal. I can go to any type of business and I can say, you need to have, number 1, a selling system. You need a way to be attracting prospects, to be attracting leads, because at the end of the day, every single business I've ever owned and every single business I've ever consulted lives and dies on revenue. You
Absolutely.
Need sales. So number 1, you need to have a selling system. And I teach people how to attract leads, how to get prospects. The second thing...
Before we move to the second thing, in your opinion, for business coaches, or any system, give us an example so those who are listening will know exactly that this is what he's talking about.
Absolutely. So, as an example, many people, of course, today might be using social media, or they might be using funnels. They might have email campaigns. They might be using billboards or, just regular advertising. When you start getting leads or when you start getting prospects, you need to have a selling system that looks at that prospect and says, okay, are they over here in this bucket, which we'll maybe refer to as our farm club? Those are simply people that have expressed interest in our goods and services. Or do they go over here into another bucket of leads that maybe we'll call our hit list? Those are people we know that have checked out our website, they've looked at our videos, they've requested information. Then maybe over here, we have another bucket of people that we call our top 25. These are people that we've actually had a conversation with. We've actually talked to them. We know there's interest. And so they're in the process of evaluating and making a decision so that we can close them. And then, of course, after you actually make the sale, you might have another bucket that you might call your advocates or your key promoters. Those are people, hopefully, that are going to refer you to other prospects and that are going to open the door and connect you to other people. So this selling system really just feeds the activity. It feeds your salespeople, or it feeds you or whoever is doing the follow-up so that you can be closing sales and actually generating revenue. Awesome. And then, of course, you get to basically the second thing, which is what I call $1 million follow-up. Most business owners, most entrepreneurs absolutely stink at following up. They think that if the person who is the prospect doesn't buy after 3 or 4 attempts, that person is not interested. And what I have found and what science has proven is that it takes anywhere from 7 to 15 touches to take a prospect on the journey to actually become a consumer. Imagine that, 7 to 15 touches, and most salespeople give up after the 3rd or 4th attempt. Just think how much more business, how many more sales a business would make if the salespeople or the business owner was able to go the distance. And what most people don't understand is in the follow-up process, there's what we call a linear and a non-linear follow-up. Linear is just like you and me are doing today. I'm talking to you. So I pick up the phone or I schedule a Zoom. This is a linear follow-up. Maybe I meet you for breakfast one day.
Yes.
What a non-linear follow-up is I send you an email and I say, hey, Yeukai, I just wrote an article and I thought that you would have interest in. It's staying engaged, but it's doing so in a non-linear fashion so that you're still relevant and so that you're still top of mind, so that a couple of days later you can follow up with a linear approach and say, hey, Yeukai, I was calling. Did you see the article I sent you the other day? Because most people that do not buy are not objecting to the offer. What they're telling you is one of a number of things. Either one, you haven't shown me enough.
Yes.
Or maybe number 2, you haven't convinced me that what you're offering offers significant value. And so you just need to keep going. It's kind of like being Muhammad Ali. You got to jab a couple times, then boom, you got to go in for the knockout punch. And if they don't, get knocked out, you jab a couple more times, and then boom, you go in for the knockout punch.
Absolutely.
So then, hopefully, you'll get to a point where you're able to close the sale. And then I teach people how to basically get referrals. Most people do not even ask for referrals, which is a shame. They don't even ask. But if they do ask, they're doing it the wrong way. Most people approach other people and say, do you know somebody that might have an interest in what we do here? And that is a yes or no question. So it makes it very easy for the other person to say, no, now that I think of it, I really don't. And that's why most people get turned off from asking for referrals. They create this limiting belief that everybody's going to say no.
Yes.
And so there's a right way and a wrong way. After you've built a relationship and after the person has seen some success or, feels good about what they have, you go to them and you say, who are you connected to that I need to meet?
That's a better way of asking.
It's not what you say, it's how you say it. Because it's very difficult for the person to say no to that. The second you say, hey, you guys, who are you connected to that I need to meet? He starts immediately thinking of people that he's connected to. That's, for example, how I met Matthew Knowles. Matthew Knowles is the founder and CEO of Music World Entertainment. He's worked with people like Chaka Khan, Kool and the Gang. You probably recognize the last name is $1 billion. And of course, that would be Beyonce, who's married to Jay-Z. So how does little old Brad Blazar get connected to one of the most powerful men in music? It was, who are you connected with that I need to know? And he's introduced me, of course, to other people. Now, one of my coaching clients is working with Winona Judd.
Wow.
She's working with Citizen Cope, and she's working with a lot of big musical artists as a way of making those connections, because I taught her how to ask me, hey, Brad, who are you connected with that I need to meet? And I introduced her now to my network. Then the fourth thing that I teach is the most important, Yeukai. This is a game changer. This really, for any business owner, transforms their business and makes them the buyer. It allows them to use the natural law of attraction. Here's the problem. Most people, when they're out networking or they're out in a social environment, and somebody comes up to them and says, hey, Yeukai, what do you do for a living? You tell them. You say, I'm a CPA, or I'm a financial planner, or I sell real estate.
Yeah.
That is the absolute worst thing you can do, because what you've immediately done is you've commoditized yourself. You've put yourself in a bucket like every other person that they have ever met before you that does exactly the same thing. You are not a person of interest to them. Think of it this way. When you're out networking or you're out socially and somebody comes up to you and they say, hey, Yeukai, what do you do for a living? Really what they're saying is, what can you do for me? Right?
Right.
At the end
Absolutely.
of the day, that's really all they care about. They're like, what can you do for me? So if you can develop a way to express what you do so that immediately they perceive there's value in building a relationship with you, they are going to seek you out. They will call you. Wouldn't you rather have your phone ringing off the hook every day with people that want to do business with you?
That's the better
have
way.
to take people for months. So here's the beauty of this. I learned a long time ago that people that have similar beliefs are attracted to each other. In other words, if you and I tend to believe the same things, we will immediately bond. We will immediately have an attraction. So let me give you an example of how I would use what I call the explanation of service. If somebody came up to me at a networking event or, out at a social gathering, they say, hey, Brad, what do you do for a living?
Yeah.
What I do is I say, I love to tell you, do you mind though before I tell you what I do, if I tell you what I believe? I believe everybody in life deserves a great coach.
Wow.
Because I found people that are coached will out-earn, they will outsell, and they will outperform others. I also believe that if you change your habits and you change your routine, you can dramatically transform your life. Now, while I'm saying that, 99.9% of the people that have any brain are thinking subconsciously, I believe those things too.
Yes.
Right? So then after I lead with 2 or 3 beliefs, I say, let me explain to you why I believe these things. And then I share a little story. I say, when I was in the oil business, a young man came to work for me named Jack. And when Jack showed up for his interview, he was dressed in a pair of jeans that had holes in the knees. He had on a pair of work boots that were covered in dirt and dust. He had on a flannel shirt. He had a big mullet for a haircut and a big Fu Manchu mustache. And for most people, the interview would have ended at the front door.
Right.
But I hired Jack. And he came to work for me. And the first day he showed up, I took him in my Porsche. I invested in his future. I treated him to 2 suits. And then I started training him. And that year, he made over $250,000 because I changed his belief system. I was able to re-engineer his brain. Now, Yeukai, you asked me what I do. What I do is I re-engineer people for greatness. I teach them that if they're willing to change their beliefs and they're able to change their habits through my coaching, they can dramatically transform their future and have much greater success in their lives. A matter of fact, if I can do for you what I've done for Jack and what I've done for hundreds of other people, would you like to learn more? Now, see what I did there?
Indeed. I'll be buying into that straight away.
But here's the key. That strategy can be applied to any business or any industry. It's really now just sitting back as an entrepreneur or as a business owner and thinking about beliefs that are tied to what you do. I was coaching a bunch of real estate agents last week on this, and one of the women said, homes are where memories are made. And I said, boom, and there you go. And so you can lead with a belief statement that says, I believe that homes are where memories are made. I do not sell houses. I sell memories. And I said, that's your first belief statement. And then, of course, you might want to lead with the second one. So it's really just thinking about what you do and then crafting what we call an explanation of service that attracts people to you. So now that person says, yeah, I'd love to learn more.
Absolutely.
Great. Let's schedule time next week, or, hey, I'm hosting an event that I'd like to invite you to. And then the very last thing is becoming what I call a person of interest. This really is where you're elevating yourself through your podcast or your social media, where you essentially become a small celebrity. You are the go-to person in your business in whatever it is you do, whether it's in your demographic region, whether it's in your country, or whether it's in the world. And so as an example, I want to be known globally around the world as the number one coach for unlocking what I call a savage mindset in turning people into beasts that are consistently hungry and chasing new business. And here's why. Most people lead an ordinary life. Would you agree that most people
absolutely
with success?
Absolutely.
And here's why. We as humans are creatures of comfort. When shit gets hard, we retreat. We become complacent. We put our head under the pillow and hope that the problems that are facing us disappear, because we are creatures of comfort. Once you get to a certain point in your life where you've got a home and you've got a car and you're able to provide, you don't work as hard. You don't work with a tremendous amount of intensity. And so when I get up on stage in front of thousands of people and I say, I want to see by a raise of hands, how many of you in this room thinks you can be operating at a higher gear? Let's be honest with ourselves, audience. How many people here think they could be approaching the day with greater intensity? Every hand goes up. And I say, well, why are you not doing that in your life right now? And here's the key. I learned about this from another coach and a mentor of mine, and he calls it prey drive.
Right.
He said most people have prey drive. Now, prey drive is defined as something that's in dogs or the big cats like the lions and the tigers. It's the ability to see something with your eyes or in your mind and then actually go chase it and get it. Everybody that is a human has prey drive. It's just that it's not activated. Okay?
Right.
Because most people do not self-motivate. That's why there are coaches. That's why there are people like Tony Robbins and Zig Ziglar's out there that make millions, because most people need to be externally motivated. But if you understand or can be taught how to activate your prey drive so that every day you wake up pursuing your dreams and pursuing your goals with a savage mentality, boom, you can transform your life and really get to a point where you've created significant momentum and significant wealth, because now you're not living life on the defensive, you're living life on the offensive. You're planning for success. You're using your weekends to restore, rejuvenate, and plan for the following week. Because what happens is most people show up to work and they are living defensively to the emails, to the telephone calls, and to all of the things that really disrupt them from success, right? In every week, you have high value and low value priorities. Focus on the high value. Focus on the things that are going to move the needle, create wealth, put money in the bank, and then learn to delegate all of the lower priority things to your staff or to somebody else that you can pay, so that you can constantly be the rainmaker and the person in your business that's actually taking you to higher levels of success.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Man, you are nailing it here. I couldn't agree with you anymore, really and truly. Talk to the business owners who maybe are struggling right now, with this whole COVID situation. What is the mindset that you encourage those who are in business, maybe those who are trying to raise capital like we've been talking about? What is the right mindset to take?
Great question. So many people out there obviously have been affected by COVID-19. Businesses are closed. Entrepreneurs don't know what the future holds. There's a lot of uncertainty. And here's the thing that I will tell you. Number one is don't give up. Sometimes you have to look at your business and just pivot. Maybe if you're a restaurant owner or you're in the business of delivering food, it's doing curbside pickup. Or it's realizing how you can deliver your meals in a different format or a different fashion. One of the people that I coach as an example owns a winery. And with the winery, of course, he has a dining area at the winery where they serve things like, flatbreads and cheeses and other things that obviously go well with wine. And he's not able now, of course, to open the dining room. So what he started doing is mailing very small bottles to people and having virtual wine tastings. Where on his website, he says, hey, join us in a virtual wine tasting on August the 25th. We'll ship out to you a couple of small bottles of our wines. We'll pair that with some cheeses, and then everybody logs on to the computer, and he's got, 80 to 100 people that are all there on Zoom, and they're all toasting with their wine glasses, and they're all talking about the wines, and they'll have a sommelier explain, of course, the vintage and what each wine is about. So you have to be creative. This, I think, COVID-19 is teaching and retraining entrepreneurs to think outside of the box. You have to really now adapt. The other thing that you need to understand is that you need to create the mindset that you are going to be successful and that you are going to work your way through this. As we know, there are plenty of loans. There are plenty of government grants. You need to be reaching out and looking into these and taking advantage of those. And then the other thing, of course, is just like we've been talking about on most of the show, is realize there's other people's money.
Yes.
There's investors. There are people out there that are looking for opportunities. They're looking for ways to basically invest their capital. And if you've got a business where you can go to somebody and say, hey, I have an idea, or I need some capital to grow or scale my business, and create a way for investors to see that opportunity and understand it, you can then raise the capital you need to go out and become hugely successable. I mean, look at the television show Shark Tank. I don't know if they have Shark Tank
We do.
Shark Tank, Mark Cuban, Kevin O'Leary. I've met Kevin O'Leary multiple times, Damon John, and so why do you think they have Shark Tank? It's so people can come onto the show that want to raise capital or want to get a shark as a partner. Well, you don't necessarily need a shark. What you need to understand in business is that the person that you think is unapproachable puts their pants on exactly the same way you do. The only difference is after they get their pants on, they make $1 million a year. But they're no different than you, right?
Totally.
You need to understand that you need to build up the courage to go out and approach people. And that's the big difference in the lesson here. People that are closers are different than people that are in sales. There's a big difference between being in sales and being a closer. The big difference is that I've looked at and I've coached thousands of salespeople. And I tell them, you're doing one of two things. You're speaking too much and you're speaking right through the close because you've asked for the sale and then you just kept right on talking. Or you have not asked for the sale. Or worst of all, you're selling what I call the flirt. When the person gives you an objection, you say, Yeukai, let me do this for you. I'm going to send you an email that will explain this, and then I'll follow up with you in a couple days. The problem, of course, is that when the salesperson tries to follow up, the person's not reachable, and you've completely wasted the opportunity to close the sale. And so I teach people in my training and in my boot camp that's coming up here in a couple of weeks called the Rise Above Boot Camp, which is a 5-day boot camp focused on sales, overcoming objections, strategies I've used to close multi-million-dollar deals and make six-figure commissions. And if anybody's interested in learning more about our boot camp, you can simply look me up on Instagram or Facebook or send an email to us, brad@bradblazar.com. We'll get you registered. It's just $21 for the whole week, so less than a cup of coffee a day. But here's the thing. Most people don't have what I call the courage to create positive tension. Now, you're not being rude. You're not being impolite, but you've got to create what I call a little bit of tension to close sales many times, and realize that when you get an objection, the person's not saying no. The person's still thinking.
It's processing.
And you've got to look at different strategies, how to isolate the objection, how to confirm it. I'll give you a story that really brings us home. When I was in the oil business, I had a very wealthy doctor. He was worth millions of dollars. And he flew out to see me on his private jet. And the second he landed, and I looked at that plane, I said, man, this guy could write a check for $1 million and he wouldn't have to think twice about it. But for whatever reason, he would not invest.
Right.
And I think I finally understood is that when you invest in oil, there is always, of course, the risk of drilling a dry hole and losing everything. That is a risk of drilling for oil, is drilling a dry hole. So one night I called him and I was talking to him about the deal. And I finally just got to a point in my mind where I said, I've gone the distance. I've talked to him about 12 times. I've got nothing to lose. And I said, Dr. Schnack, it takes two things to invest in an oil well. He said, what? And I said, it takes balls and lots of money. Which of the two don't you have? Now, most people that are a 26-year-old kid would not say that to somebody worth millions of dollars. It takes two things, balls and money. Which of the two don't you have? And then I shut up. And after what seemed like an eternity, he said, Brad, tell me again, how much are 3 units in your program? And I said, let's get you signed up. But you see, that's the difference between having a closer's mentality and just being a salesperson. I could have easily said, hey, let me give you a couple more days to think about it, and I'll call you next week. And so I teach people how to create that positive tension. Now, was I rude?
No, you just guided him. Absolutely. Now, Brad, as we come toward the end of our time together, I'm glad you pointed out about the boot camp. Where else can people find you to connect with you should they want to enroll in one of your coaching programs?
Absolutely. So, of course, my website is the easiest. It's www.bradblazar.com. Understand my last name is spelled B like boy, L-A-Z like zebra, A-R with an A at the end. You can, of course, connect with us through the contact page there. Absolutely. I am on Instagram as just Brad Blazar on Instagram. We got about 38,000 followers there. Of course, you can also go and look up Beast Nation, which is my podcast. On the website, we do have our podcast page there so that you can look at all of the podcasts we've done, some of the other podcasts that have hosted me. And, of course, we have a YouTube channel, so you can go to YouTube and just look up Brad Blazar. And then we have our Facebook page. You can go on Facebook and look up Beast Nation, which is our community of people that would like to follow us and would like to have access daily. Every week, we basically in our Facebook group, have motivational quotes. Usually I'm posting videos as I'm coaching and basically training the community of people as it's grown. So that is really the easiest way for anybody that wants to buy the books. The 2 books are available on Amazon. The first book is called On the Wings of Eagles, Learning How to Soar in Life. That was the one that was rated as a top read for entrepreneurs. And then book number 2 is really for the entrepreneur or for the business owner that has employees. And it's called Put Some Thrive in Your Hive, How to Unlock Potential in Any Organization. And it teaches business owners and entrepreneurs really how to create a culture of praise and recognition so that your employees become loyal to you. They'll stay with your company. They'll align with your corporate missions and values. Because I've been called in to train managers and executives in major companies with billions of dollars in revenue. And what I found was so many of the managers and leaders think that employees want to be motivated with more money or with bonuses.
But it's the other way.
Makes sense. But I found when I asked the employees how important that was, is they said it really is not that important. What really I would like is just some praise and recognition. If they had an award, or if I was called out in front of all my peers and they recognized me, that's really for me much more meaningful.
They want to be valued.
What the book does is it communicates that message to the people in management so that now they understand how to better build that culture, the praise and recognition, because I've always found basically that with any business, there are three things you've got to do well. And I call it RDR. You got to recruit good people. You got to develop them. You got to train them. And then, of course, the R stands for retention. They will stay with you if you develop and train them and praise them. The problem many businesses have is they don't develop and train and praise. And so that's why in a lot of businesses you have high turnover and you're not able to scale as dramatically as you're losing those good people as they go out and they go to work for your competitors, or they go out and they actually start a business competing with you directly.
Outstanding, Brad. You have wealth of knowledge locked up in you. We certainly would love to have you on another show, talk about maybe the mistakes that business owners make in an effort to raise more capital or to run a successful business that you have experienced yourself in running business and in consulting. With that said, we truly appreciate the wealth of knowledge you've shared with our audience. And for our audience, there you have it, Brad Blazar there with you, sharing his knowledge and how you too can tap into his knowledge and do well in your business. Now, if you've got any questions, there will be a form here on this page, or you can hook us up on Instagram or on our YouTube, or even on my LinkedIn. Just go to Yeukai Business Show LinkedIn, and you'll be able to ask any questions. I'm usually there, to answer any of your questions. If not, my team will be in there to support you. Again, we've covered a lot of things here. If you pick just one of those things, apply it, you'll be amazed at what happens. Thanks again, man, for being here with us today.
Absolutely. You got to take care. Have a wonderful remainder to your weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Yeukai Business Show. We will be back to bring you more episodes with success stories and advice straight from the experts. Want more? Check out www.yeukaibusinessshow.com. Get your free trial of our virtual assistant service today. Just visit www.worldoutsourcingsolutions.com. Quote WOS18 or send us an email at support@worldoutsourcingsolutions.com.